First off, let me start off by sending my sincere condolences, prayers to the Leach family and the Mississippi State football family and community. As you guys know, as a former part of that family, there's a lot of really, really good, passionate fan base and people that are hurting today. Obviously, Coach Leach, his family is hurting today. The college football world is hurting today. We lost a great one. I think one of the special things about Coach Leach was his uniqueness. And when you really look at college football and the landscape that we live, we've been able to really take a special moment and be around and enjoy people's uniqueness. And I think Coach Leach, as unique as he was, ultimately had a huge impact on the game of college football. There's a lot of former players that he's changed their life, a lot of former universities and communities. So our prayers are with their family and the Mississippi State family and the college football world as we've lost a great one. I think it reminds us all that, yes, we play a game, but this is really a national community and family. When you look across the country and everybody has been affected by one man or one man's influence on the game. So prayers out to them that they can be strong as we Marshall family know, rising through tragedy and heartache. So we pray with them today. So with that, talk about the bowl game. You guys got your Rivera, I can't even say that word. I don't know if that's politically correct. Everybody uses it. I'm like, am I allowed to say that? Yeah. Well, the word that comes before that. The Riviera of the West Virginian vacation destination. I'm excited. I think when you really look at it, we talk about the Marshall family and how they flock to Myrtle Beach. I think it's really West Virginia in general. So I think there's going to be a lot of West Virginians that'll be rooting for Marshall, come Monday. So we're excited. We've got a lot of work to do up until the point with the game. We've made some good strides. We've used this opportunity to develop. We've used this opportunity to heal up. We used this opportunity to recruit. We used this opportunity to kind of go back and look at, season, what we did well, what we can improve on, how we can maximize this last opportunity as a family. I told the guys yesterday, this is the last opportunity that this family, this collection of men and women will be together ever in life. Won't happen again. There'll be another Marshall team. There'll be some guys return. There'll be some guys leave. But this collection of people will never be together again. So we got an opportunity to go down and compete against a really good opponent, and we're really looking forward to it.
It makes UCONN special. I mean, they've had a nice turnaround, so what makes them challenging for you?
Yeah, you guys use that word a lot, turnaround. I think it's called development, and I think that's what ultimately happens. And we all don't get control when the development starts or when it shows up. But I think it's development. And if you watch, I've watched every game, all three sides of the ball, and you watch the course of the year, they just kind of got better and got better and got better. I think, with a new coaching staff and new schemes, there's a little bit of, okay, hey, coaches, we want to do this, but here's what our players can do. And as the season goes on, they're able to do more. And I think when you watch the games, kind of as the season goes on, you see development. You see players getting better. You see consistency in their, performance. You start to see things that they are really good at. There are some things they did earlier in the year that maybe personnel-wise or just understanding of what they were trying to do wasn't there. But as the year went on, you could see them build confidence in certain things schematically. You can see some of the players improve. I think the quarterback's done a really good job of improving. Their O-line has improved. Defensively, they play with a lot of confidence. I think they play really hard. I think Coach Mora has built a NFL kind of system or mentality where, hey, we're going to play really good on all three phases and we're going to make you beat us. Kind of like the NFL model, put our players in position to make some plays. So they're impressive. They're impressive. They play hard. There are games that they are out of and they are still running to the ball. They are still scheming offensively and defensively from a coaching perspective. So it's going to be a good challenge. I like the fact that obviously we don't know them as league opponents. I think that creates a little bit of challenge to your process. Are you able to prepare to a faceless opponent? Are you able to prepare not knowing that, hey, this quarterback's really good in this league, or we saw them play last week against this opponent? Sometimes when you're preparing for an opponent, obviously you have crossover games, right? So naturally the mind starts to look at the other side. Like, yeah, I know we got that school in 2 weeks. Man, that guy was really good. Even though you're focusing on the current game. Now we don't have that crossover, so we haven't seen them. So we got to watch every clip. We got to take every rep blind. I told them we have to prepare as if they are us. What does that mean? We have to prepare that if they're doing everything right that we're doing, that we have to prepare that they are, practicing really hard. They are taking care of their bodies. They are making really good choices and decisions, because we don't know. And the only way to truly prepare yourself is to control what you can control. So,
what happened to him against Army?
You know what? I think when you play the triple option, kids don't see it in high school. Kids don't see it in 7-on-7. Kids don't see it on the video game. Like, you can't play Madden and run the triple option. You don't go in the backyard and say, okay, hey, let's play triple option. And I think, again, when you get into that phase, all the development that you had built kind of takes a pause, because everything is kind of different, And again, Army runs that. That's their norm, So I think a little bit of that, if we hadn't have, you think back to last year, if we don't play Navy the first game of the year, maybe a little different performance for us. If we played them in the middle and we had, 4 days to prepare, and you're battling okay, well, what are they going to do? That mentality may be a little different, but we had a year, and we used the year. We were practicing for them in the spring and in the summer. And I think when you get them at the end of the year and you got to kind of flip the page and go right to them, it makes it a little difficult. That's the positive of what the academies do. They're able to neutralize the personnel level with their scheme, and they're good at it. They believe in it. I think, the game I love to watch, the Army-Navy game. I mean, you look at it, you talk about two teams competing their tails off, and I think that's what you get.
You used the phrase last week, be where your feet are. How important is that when you get down to Myrtle Beach? A lot of other stuff going on. A matter of practice.
Yeah.
You used the phrase "be where your feet are." How important is that as you go to Myrtle Beach? Other things surrounding the game, and then you get to the game itself. How important is it to keep that mentality of focus on where you are?
Yeah, I think that's kind of our bowl game motto, because the bowl game is a little bit of a celebration. It's a little bit of a reward aspect. It's a little bit of you got to think about it from the coaches. You get to take your family with you for a week, So I think it's a little bit of a combination, but there is still a game to win. And I think if you focus too much on just going down, and you guys got to stay locked in, and don't worry about going to the beach, and don't worry about, spending time, at the reception or the bowling alley or whatever it is, you force kids to make a decision. And that decision usually is selfish. And the selfish decision, or the selfish mind, is kind of like me. I'm going to eat cheesecake. Doctor can say, no, I'm going to eat it. I like it. So you put kids in that scenario, well, I'm going to go bowling, and I'm going to have fun with bowling. And no, I'm not going to be worried about third down at the bowling alley. But if you give them some lanes to guide themselves on, I think you give them an opportunity to truly enjoy the full trip. And that's one thing we talk about. When you're at the bowling alley, be fully engaged at the bowling alley. When we show up at meetings, we got to be fully engaged in meetings. And I think the more you can give them those guidelines, the better chance you have to accomplish both, right? Enjoy the trip, enjoy our last time as a family together. Enjoy Myrtle Beach. There's some guys on our team never been to Myrtle Beach. Stacy Marshall said to me the other day, Coach, I've never been to a bowl game. He's like, I know, this is so exciting to me. Owen Porter was like, we're going to Myrtle Beach. It's just Myrtle Beach. For him, he's been there 1,000 times. So I think, again, you have different levels on your team of guys who are truly enjoying this moment, but you got to give them some guidelines of how to handle it. No different than we do, during the week. After the game's over, hey guys, go celebrate, go spend time with your family. 24 hours at the end, let's come back and be where our feet are to get ready for next week. And I think if you give those guidelines, you got a better chance to keep guys focused on the task at hand.
Mitch, recruiting, how much do you like the fact that you're the only game in town that day, and a lot of eyeballs are looking for something to do? They can flip on the TV, and high school kids, college. You're the only bowl game that day.
Yeah, I'm a little different. We got gypped out of an extra official visit weekend because we're leaving a little bit earlier. So from the transfer portal perspective, we've been shipping kids in, midweek. Hey, you come in for 2 hours and leave. Can you come back for 4 hours and leave? Well, coach going to come this weekend. Well, actually, we'll be at the bowl game this weekend. Oh, well, I'm going to go to this school this weekend. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. You get to go to the bowl game. And obviously, from a national exposure perspective, there's a lot of people going to get to watch the herd, which is great. From the logistics of, you're going to lose 48 hours that we could be getting. I think Grayson McCall went in the transfer portal. He may wanted to come this weekend. We're not going to be here. No, but, just some things you got to navigate. Somebody tweeted me that, he should come here. Great, doors open. But I think, again, when you start to kind of look at both sides of it, from a perspective of we lose the opportunity to bring some guys in because of the game, we also gain the opportunity to be seen nationally and show a talent. And like you say, being the only game on, it's not like you got to flip to Channel 3 and then back to Channel 5 and back to Channel 16 to try to see them all. You can kind of watch, just watch the herd, which is really good. Funny story. You guys won't even believe this, okay? So I'm at the University of Alabama 2 years ago, and I'm just sitting there. The only game on TV, I'm watching football. It's the Herd's bowl game. About a week later, I get a phone call about the Herd job. See how that works? I had no clue. I was just sitting there watching the game. I forget who they played back then. It was the COVID year. Played Buffalo in the Camellia Bowl. And I'm just watching. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is Buffalo and Marshall. Okay, let's just watch it. About a week later, I'm involved in the head coaching job. So hopefully that there's not the next head coach watching the Herd this week and there's no surprises. But I do think, like you say, you get some national exposure to someone who may know about Marshall but not necessarily get to watch our performance, on TV.
You mentioned the recruiting aspect. This is kind of one of those areas where you're still trying to prepare for a game and focus on, kids that are going to be here next year. How do you balance that as a coach?
Yeah, I think a couple reasons. A couple ways. One, our recruiting staff is so important. And I know as college football continues to change, the sizes of staffs or something of talking conversation or talking piece, and why do we need this many people? And Coach X, Y, and Z did it 20 years ago, and he only had so many people. Well, because of where recruiting is going, it's 24 hours. The coaches can't be watching the transfer portal and evaluating, potential candidates and game planning and taking care of our current kids. So that's why, to me, I always talk about it. You guys just think I'm just barking for money about the resources that we need to be able to sustain success. We've got to be able to constantly have the resources around so that, Coach Guidry isn't trying to watch all the defensive players in the transfer portal and game plan and coach the safeties and coach the defense. We've got people that can do that. We need more because now you're talking about, we got one or two people that's watching. I think someone told me it was upwards of like 1,200 kids. Well, we watch them all because they're all important. There is no, we're not watching him. We watch them all. We evaluate them all. There's a write-up on them all. There's a ranking of who's who. So in order to do that, to watch 1,200 kids, that's a lot. So those are the resources that really help programs really take that next step, because now you can divide that up. And if you got 4 or 5 people watching 1,200 kids, you're getting more true evaluations. It's a little less time, spent doing that. But that's a big piece. And then obviously you have to have a really good schedule and organization. So I laid out after the last home game, I laid out the exact schedule all the way up until January 9th when we return for school. Every day, what we're doing. How many days are we spending on recruiting? How many days are we spending on developmental prep? How many days are we spending on the opponent? What days are we focused on making sure we rewatch the portal, because it's changing, right? The guy that you watch, that you loved, all of a sudden he's going X, Y, and Z school. Who's next? And our team, right? We've got some guys who've decided to move on for different reasons. How does that manage our roster? How do we replace those guys? Does that scholarship stay at that position, or does it need to go to another spot? So there's a lot of moving parts that have to be done, but I think organization and resources allow you to stay on top of that.
What about within your team, some of the guys that may be part of the future next year with these extra practices? Is anybody kind of starting to stand out, or somebody you guys might be giving more reps to, so taking advantage of this time?
Yeah, I think obviously the quarterbacks are always the ones that, you like to try to get more reps because just when you're in the game planning phase, you don't have the opportunity to rep 4 or 5 different quarterbacks, right? You're trying to get the ones and the twos, as many reps and looks at the different coverages and options as you can. So the quarterbacks have been able to develop. Chase Harris has been able to do some things. Cole Penning has been able to do some things. I think, again, when you start talking about O linemen, D linemen, they take a little bit longer to develop. So the Tariq Montgomerys and the Jalen Slappies and the Juszczyks, the Farleys, those guys are able to develop. I call them Farley. I know it's Fraley, but it's an inside joke. But Fraley is able to do some of those things. So some of those younger guys who, when you're in a game week, is going to get limited reps. Those guys are now getting double the reps that they would have gotten, during the season. And you can start to see some development. The young O linemen are doing some really good things. Been really impressive. Obviously, there is a physical part that they still got to, continue to make strides in. But as far as communicating and knowing what to do and actually competing, they've done some really good things. Obviously, quarterbacks are getting a little bit more confident now. So those are some things that have been really good defensively. I think you saw as the year went on, we got some of those younger guys in, the Deani Hills, the Dennis Millers, the A.G. McGee's, they were able to get some of those reps, based on what we were doing on defense. But now they're getting, sometimes it's easy to go in and run one play right. It's hard to run 6 plays right in a row. How do you reboot? So now we're getting a chance to see that. Yeah, you can run in and run one play right because coach just told you, hey, when you go in there, you're running this. Okay, great. But 6 plays in a row, get the signal, get the adjustment, see the different combinations. So those are the things we're starting to see, which has been really promising.
Coach, when you got here, you started with the hashtag Close the Gap. That was your whole mentality. Here we are 2 years in, ending both seasons with bowl games, 15 wins. Just where do you think the gap is now, I guess?
Yeah, that's an easy one. I fight the administration all the time. They love me and I love them. We got to close the gap resources-wise because in order to get – and we're close. That's why I think it's called closing the gap and not the gaping gap. There's a difference. But resource-wise, in order to get to where we need to be, there are a lot of things that we got to do, right? We got to be able to retain our staff. I think if you look on the defensive side, we've had continuity. They've played a little bit better. On the offensive side, we had change for whatever reason it is. And I get it. At this level, you're going to have change. We lost 13 staff members last year. You can't do that every year. Now, everybody says, well, Coach Saban loses coordinators every year. Yeah, but he's playing with 5 stars. So it's easy to place Charles Huff in the running back room and coach Najee Harris. That's easy. But again, we got to be able to retain our staff. We got to have the resources to do that, or at least be competitive. We've got to be able to continue to enlarge our staff so that we can continue to manage. I got 125 football players. And you talk about, 10 coaches, maybe we have at a total of 15 or 20 people. That's a lot. If we went on a field trip with elementary school kids and we had 125 of them and only 20 people to manage it, the school board would be all over us. You can't watch if Johnny needs to go to the bathroom, if Johnny needs to go get something to eat. So to be able to do that, and what are you talking about from a mental health standpoint, bringing guys in and talking to guys about different things. Hey, well, why are you going to the transfer portal? Well, I'm homesick. Well, what's homesick? Just little things like that. I think you talk about closing the gap. I think we are making some strides. Nutrition's been one that we've made some strides on that we got to continue to be better. If you look back, last year this time, I didn't tell you guys because I didn't want Lafayette to know. We only had 6 healthy D linemen. I knew it when I stood up here and it was going in. I was doing a little praying and hoping that Lafayette wouldn't find out. They found out about the third quarter. But those type of things. So we're able to train and nutrition our guys a little bit more. We're a little bit deeper, you know what I mean? So now we're able to have more depth and competition. Well, how do you get deeper? Resources, right? Resources to do recruiting. Resources that we've been blessed enough to use the Bill No Flight School to get around the country and do some recruiting. I don't know if you guys know how hard it is to fly from Butler, Kansas to Gainesville, Florida, back to, Albuquerque, back to, Mississippi Junior College, but that's what you got to be able to do. And we're getting to the point to where we have some of the resources to close it, but we got to continue to close it. I think that's why we ended up second or tied for second or third in the East. That means we're close, but we're not there. And that doesn't always mean just because you have the best resources in the conference that you win the championship. What it means is if you have the best resources, you're going to have the most consistency. And that's where we're trying to get. Ultimately, it's going to come down to X's and O's. But if as we go, we have more resources, we can retain the staff, we have more continuity, we're going to be more consistent. And ultimately, that will determine when we win a championship or when we win the East or whenever that is. But collectively, I think we're making strides. I think Brad Smith and Kristen Spears are doing a heck of a job. We're not the only sport here at Marshall. I get it. So it's a little bit slower process. But those are the strides we need to make to keep closing the gap.
In regards to preparation from last year's bowl game, did you learn anything different that you might have done different in preparation, I guess, from last year to this year?
The system's the same, because you really just take your 15 days and back it up. Probably we're able to do a little bit more because we have more healthy players. Last year we were kind of limited because of just the bodies that could go. So we were able to do a little bit more in those developmental practices, in those kind of bowl prep practices, because again, you got more bodies. So now it's not like, well, we got 6 D linemen standing over there. We only got 6 D linemen that can go. They can't take every rep, and they can't go against the younger guys and the older guys. So that's helped us a little bit. So probably same system, just different health perspective allows us to do a little more.
When you look at how your team has grown from week 1 to now, what's maybe something that they are capable of going into the bowl game that maybe you didn't think they were capable of coming into the year?
Probably just the ability to focus on now. When you start the year, there's so much anticipation. There's, hey, I want to have, 100 yards rushing every game. Hey, we want to win every game. Hey, I want to have sacks. There's so much anticipation at the beginning of the year that it's hard to kind of really focus on the now. I think this season has taught us the ebbs and flows of the season, the highs and lows, that just focus on now. Focus on what we can control. Focus on preparing really well this week. Don't worry about what's going to happen after the bowl game for the seniors. Don't worry about what's going to happen next year. Being able to focus on now. And I think as the year went on, we were able to do that a little more, which ultimately allows you to improve. Because if your mind is already on, what am I going to do after the bowl game if I'm a senior, well, then you're not focused on the rep that you just took. So if we can do more of that, and I think obviously taking advantage and value of every single day we have together. I think as the year went on, it was kind of like, wow, this thing's coming to an end, So I think we're able to focus a little bit more on the now, which has helped us develop throughout the year.
Coach, year 1 in the Sun Belt. Just how is it different from Conference USA, or maybe how is it similar, and what do you think, I guess, about competing in the Sun Belt?
Yeah, I think it's a little more competitive top to bottom. I think there's a little bit more competitive balance, for whatever reason, whether that's, coaches, players. I think there's obviously a fan engagement piece because of the regionality of the league. You guys have probably ran into more Sun Belt opposing fans than you did, Conference USA, just because it was a little bit more spread out. But I would say the biggest piece is going to be the competition level top to bottom. There's not a, hey, here are the consistent 2 or 3 teams that are really, really good, and these teams are struggling. It's kind of, as we saw any given Saturday, and I think the beauty of that is that we were in the mix of that conversation. We weren't the new school that came in that's at the bottom that's trying to climb. We were right in the mix of it. Now, we still got some improvement to do, and there's still a lot of opportunity to grow, but I think competitively, you pick a team, and there were games where that team beat that team. Well, that team lost to that team last week. Well, that team turned around and beat that team. I think that's what, and probably what makes it the Fun Belt, because it is fun. It's not just, all right, these 3 teams are going to be at the top and then roll the dice at who's at the bottom. I think it's every week, and I think that helps the fans be more engaged, because it's not like, all right, well, that was the one game we had a chance to win, so pull out the basketballs. I think it keeps fans engaged. I think even our fans were excited to kind of watch the league develop, watching the other teams kind of compete. And, man, we got that team coming next week, and they just played really good against this team. So I think the competitive level, top to bottom, probably. Good? Well, appreciate you guys. I look forward to seeing everybody down in Myrtle Beach, and go Hurt.